Welcome to another session from the Wise Asylum. Well, they've only gone and done it, haven't they? You've done the coronation, the deed. What does that mean exactly? Because just watching, I only wanted to see the oath. That's basically all I was interested in. Certainly a shortened one on comparison to his mum. Not impressed, in truth. It's wide open. He did, however, of course, oath to keep the common law, or the law, which is only the common law. It's got nothing to do with government. So the land law is in place, so we can see that everything is being done through the government holding equitable title. The government are in contract with the WEF. The government are in contract with the United Nations, with the European Union, etc., etc. But they've been signed off by the monarch, so they are playing a nasty game. We know about fraud. We know that already. That's been going on for the last 70 years. Basically, his mother's handed the whole realm over to foreign entities. But they still can't touch the land, as it were. Otherwise, he's not upholding that law. So what law is he upholding? Just that. But then we get to the clever bit. And it is the clever bit because this is beyond the wit of most people in relation to where the power for change here is going to be on equity. And that is immigration. All the nonsense that's going down because of the agreements that the government has with the United Nations, European Union, the World Economic Forum, etc. That's going to go on without a doubt, and he wanted to defend all faiths, but he's got to uphold the Church of England. And everybody would go, well, no, because that's where the trick is. Now, I don't know whether I have told you before that some 5 years ago maybe, I ended my stint when I went to investigate the Church of England. I wanted to go and see what was going on really on the ground, which meant I had to go to the local parish. Loved the people, absolutely adored the people, and that in fact was the only thing that made me stay the time I did, because the people are absolutely fantastic. We love the people, as you'd expect. But it was obviously timely, because as I entered, we probably got about a year, as it had been for years. The same vicars, the old school boys. So you get the same sermon. They'd read from the Bible, certain passages that the vicar had decided he wanted to preach. And then the vicar would then go on and further expand on the sermon from the Bible, the biblical script. And I have to be honest, once I started paying attention, it was very interesting, because there's so much good moral stuff in them Gospels, and not even just in the Gospels, in some parts of the Old Testament, that I were quite, I were enthralled basically, and I thought, no, I'm going to give this some effort. Now, after about a year, everything started to change, and all of a sudden they had thrust upon them. I mean, you're talking here, there were a lot of people in the 90s there that had been going there for, all their life. And I obviously sat with the grandees. I wanted their opinion on everything. If I had a question, I wanted their opinion rather than any young uns. I wanted the old school that had been sat there for almost a century. What did they think about things? Anyway, cut short, all of a sudden, old vicars sacked, pushed away, whatever they do it, whatever they call it, basically was sacked. Congregation didn't like it, and in popped this young 40-odd-year-old excitable person. Obviously he was married, he had children, etc. Straight away you could tell they were a bit more fervent in the old Puritan side of things, so they were closer to Zionism. But what really started to shine through very quickly was the fact that same gig, they'd read from the Bible, and then this guy would stand up, and show me that he absolutely had no comprehension of the sermon from the Bible that had just been spoken, usually by somebody in the congregation. And it became obscene to me, to be quite honest. Now, I know most of the people over there were really taking much notice. They just go through the motions because they've been doing it for that long. But I was paying full attention, and it was just ridiculous, the contradiction in terms in relation to the script that you've been pulled from the Bible, and then this guy so-called expanding it. The guy were absolutely annihilating it and showing full well that he hadn't got a clue what it meant. In a lot of cases, I don't even think he'd read it, but if he did, he speed read it, because he really did no idea. So obviously I was getting excited. I spoke to a couple of the old grandees, and one of them just probably shouldn't have really, but she said to me, listen, you're not in the Catholic Church here, you're in the Church of England. If the vicar's not doing it right, you can stand up and tell him. And I thought, well, good on you, girl. Thinking to myself, I'm not going to do that. But the very following week, it was just debauched, the difference between what they read from the Bible and what he gave as his grasp on it, and his lecture, as it were, to the faithful. So up I stand, and I started, whoa, wait a minute, quizzing it. Well, this guy was bright pink and purple and red. He obviously never experienced anything like that. Because these guys that they were pumping in all across the Church of England were families that had been sent out into the wilds of Africa. So what I started to realise pretty quickly, that this guy didn't have a clue what he was talking about, because he wasn't actually in any way, shape or form a representative of biblical text. This guy was something else. And just listening to some of his speak with other people, not necessarily in the sermons, I could pretty much tell this guy thought himself more of a voodoo shaman. And this seemed to pan out across the Church of England, and this is going back to about 2017, maybe 16, 17, maybe even 15, I can't remember exactly. And I could see it, and I could see that they wanted this happy clappy shit. Let's get to this garbage. Yeah. So I could see pretty clear what was going on. So I started slowly to just try and test the congregation to see what they were seeing. And in more cases than not, it took me to present what I thought and them to agree, or cock a wink at least. So I say, he just got worse. This guy was a complete lunatic, and I made it pretty plain that I weren't appreciative of his knowledge of the Bible, and his sermons were pretty shit. Without, of course, saying them too, because they're church. But it got to a point where every week I had a point, so I thought, I'm not doing this anymore because I'm ruining it for everybody, and that's why I stopped going. But I gathered enough data to know that the Church of England was well under the Vatican II, so whatever's going on in there is sanctioned by Vatican II, which is Jesuit stuff, Jesuitism. 2, they were replacing the entire old school vicars with these new breed, African trained, shamanic voodoo priests. While at the same time pulling in these evangelical backstreet happy clappy satanic churches that we all used to know, because they were been put in charge of all the food bank system, a lot of the social care, pulled into social workers, etc., etc. So basically, in about 2008, with the Trussell Trust, the Doverton Trust, the food bank's introduction, was the door opening for these satanic backstreet happy clappers. So of course they were trying to get these spastics in with the old kind of stuff. The congregation weren't having it, so these guys, every time they attempted to stand up and do a dance, they were pretty much stern, looked at and shut up. So it didn't work, and it wasn't working while I was there at all, but I mean, we're going back from there, so I don't know where it's at today. I know the church, the parish that I went to the town parish. I thought, well, that's where the power is spiritually in this town, let's go there. Of course, it was Church of England. No problem. But like I said, it's Vatican II stuff, so you don't matter which one you go to today, it's the same stuff. It's all going to depend on the quality of the priest, the vicar, and the staff that are running the church. And this is another thing a lot of people never seem to realise, it's that these churches are run by people. So you can have a variety of different ideas and attitudes throughout the Church of England, because it depends entirely on who are the people that have got the power in that church and who are running that system. Of course, they're not as potent as they used to be because everybody was throwing money at them, There's the biggest problem they have today at Church of England, or at least then when I was there, was they didn't have any money, which is why they had to bring in these evangelicals, because they were in command of these food banks and the social system that's being set up under this corporatism. So, Charles Fine, he's upholding the law. So common laws secure your estate, which is being held in trust, your estate being your right to land, is still being held in trust by the monarch. You would think that's secure, but the monarch for the last 70 years and before is playing in this system. Right? He's playing in this system. But all the things everybody's angry about is actually not going on at that side. It's going on at equity, which is government. Right? The legislation, Parliament. Yeah, the parliaments are set up through Cromwell, Commonwealth parliaments. Yeah, nothing to do with representative parliamentarians that we used to have since the provisions of Oxford. No, this is the system set up via Cromwell, and it's treating you now as animals, and that's been since 1924. Okay, so he's done part of it okay, the rest of it complete garbage. But he's going to sanction everything that this government does because he likes everybody. Even Satanists, he loves it all. He's not bothered. Whatever your faith is, he's up for it. You're alright, he'll protect you. Unless, of course, you're Christian or English or Scottish, maybe. Although the ties to the Scottish Church are overbearing. I mean, for a start, it was done on May 6th. This is Lord Lyon's Special Court. Again, November the 6th is Lord Lyon's Special Court. Now, when I actually set off doing this physical exposure stuff, before I got on the internet, when I was doing it physically to all the MPs and councillors, etc., I actually began the whole thing specifically on November the 6th as Lord Lyon's Special Court. Because in that side of things, it's a very important ritual date. So it's no coincidence that they did it on May the 6th, because of course it's a Scottish thing. So the Scottish Presbyterian side, which gave us the Whigs that took over the country, tapped us into all things Scottish Rite, Masonry as opposed to the York Rite, came from the Presbyterian Church. It spread across into America, which is why the Scottish Rite's held in high regard. You don't really hear much about the York Rite. Does it mean to say the York Rite isn't in charge? I don't know. Time has passed. You can't really go off historical context in relation to who's on top and who isn't. There's so much has happened, especially since the launch of speculative masonry, because that dragged everybody into everything that was dark. And of course, you could say on the back of the Grand Orient interconnections of these lodges, which goes way back. So we'll not get too stuck into that, because the theme and what I want people to understand is, basically I watch GBN News. GBN News is a load of shit. Paul Marshall invests in it. He comes into this mix in a minute, so you'll understand why GBN are doing everything to talk up the wrong. They're putting you on the wrong path. Now, either they don't understand law, and this was a guy called Neil Oliver, a young Doctor Who, feigning to be up for all this English, but in reality completely confusing you when he's trying to focus you to what it is you should be bothered about, because he's tying law to government. So he obviously hasn't got a clue what he's talking about, or he's shilling. Now, GBN might be using people that they know don't really understand what they're doing, because it will work for shilling. But we don't know. They either know what they're doing or they don't. I don't know. He's probably bloodline, because he's been on telly for a long time. And he's very opinionated, in my opinion. A lot of the opinions I used to watch and listen to back in the day were quite off the mark. So he's either a dumbass puppet that they love because he just does what they say, or he's a shill. So that's GBN News. Okay, so you've got Nigel Farage in there. You've got all these numpties going on in that block. You've got another thing I saw this week. Piers Morgan now having a weekly or a monthly gig with Johnny Lydon, the so-called rebel of the old 70s punk scene. What a complete arsehole. Johnny Rotten is a tosser. He's now, for all his wind and piss about Jimmy Savile, he's now playing out with a guy who was mentored by the Uber Epstein blackmail network provocateur Robert Maxwell. So, see Piers Morgan, see Robert Maxwell, see the network that took over by Les Wexner and handed to Ghislaine and Jeffrey, moved to America to be fronted from that side of the pond after all the furore with Maxwell, because of course he thought he was above Mossad, and even though he was the prize financier and the prize intelligence gatherer, he had to be taken out because he became a bit off the wall, thought he was in command of everything. Of course, a big part of that network went to Murdoch. We could see that with all the tapping. So what Maxwell had actually accrued in this country as a network for intelligence, for blackmail, because he was involved in the media, plus the pension side of it as well, the financial, was split. The blackmail side was given to Ghislaine and Jeffrey, or Les Wexner, who then appointed those two, because all the properties and everything that's assigned to Epstein, which we'll have a little look at, because he didn't have anything, was all Les Wexner stuff, and next time we'll say, oh, he's given it to me. So, just to get that out of the way, so you've got Piers Morgan, they're all coming in together, and you've got Johnny the Lydon, the tosspot, who's supreme now, because he's playing in the game while slagging off Jimmy Savile. So he's running his mouth on, look what I did, while playing with another aspect of it, and seems to be jolly happy to do the same. Interesting. So what I want to do first is just give you a little reminder, because we do forget. There's a man just come in, coronated, with a strange book, because in my opinion the book's the key to this. We have no idea what's in that book. We are supposed to accept or presume that it is the King James Bible, unaltered. But it did say in the actual coronation itself, revised for 2023. Right, so it's brand spanking new. Yeah, brand spanking new. So let me just remind you what force is now sitting atop again of our nation. And it's him. This network, Evelyn de Rothschild, dead he may be, doesn't matter. You know, people have to get off that. It doesn't matter if he's dead. He's part of a network. It was his role to control Charles. Whomever's took over, he's still holding the same power we can see in that image. Okay? It has to be understood this way. This is the Rothschilds. This is finance. This is Israel. Okay? That's what it is. It's their gig. We got tied into it in the First World War, so we didn't surrender. Yeah, we've looked at that many times. We don't have to go into that again. That's what we're looking at, folks. That's what we sat down on the throne on Saturday, and is now oathed to uphold the law, fine, but more importantly, the Church of England. Okay, and I noticed he didn't really mention it. There was in a term, as it were. It were interesting. I haven't had a chance to go back and actually re-watch the oath he took, but I couldn't. I just know it were odd. It were very odd. Now, this is the thing for me. That's the book. What is it? It says Archbishop of Canterbury Justin Welby holds Coronation Bible, a specially commissioned Bible, which we use when the King Charles III takes the coronation oath. Right? A specially commissioned Bible. And we are to presume, how can we give him consent when we haven't got a clue what he's oathed on? He might have just oathed on there and said, like, come in, Satan, to this nation and take over everybody's kids. Because he probably does, because I'll tell you what it is. In there is the Noahide. That's what's in there. And because he holds all our rights to land, in trust, our estates, because he's on that, he, in upholding the law, is going to sanction it. That's your right to the land, that's the common law right. Okay? So forget government. Government's way down the game and it's only dealing on equity. Okay, it's really, really important that this book is the key to what everybody understands is the gig, the deception that they're playing on. See, just as I solemnly promise and swear to govern the people, the coronation oath has been almost exactly the same since the Glorious Revolution of 1688. Its words lay out the basic premise of monarchy from the monarch's perspective, detailing everything they promise to maintain. preserve inviolably, and perform and keep. Whether they actually end up doing all these things is sometimes a matter of differing judgment. For all her determination to stay aloof from politics, Queen Elizabeth II was publicly accused of violating the coronation oath in diverse circumstances, from joining the European Union community in 1972 to legalising gay marriage in 2013. Damn right she did, but that's only what you know about. Her entire stint was a fraud. The choice never stuck. Well, it won't do. Who are you sending the complaints to? All the best mates. Or let's say, all the best mates of that fella. Yeah? So he's just a puppet, Charlie Boy. Everything revolves around protecting this man's claim on this chap. Of course, it's not him now, and nobody needs to say he's dead. It doesn't matter. We're dealing with networks here. Somebody's replaced him. Okay? So for me, that is where the problem is. This book. A bit like we saw with Obama and various presidents not actually taking their oath on the Constitution, or they were added annex stuff to it. Yeah, Americans never made a fuss about it, but we need, if you're going to make a fuss, it's no use saying, oh, he's not upholding the law. He's made it clear he's upholding the law of the land. So that's all it means. He has the first right to the land, and everything beneath it is a tenant to it. Government is a separate thing, which is why you've got the Sesquiv Trust, the surname, and of course the first name in that trust is Mr. And for me it would be Young Sean. That's why it's the first name. They've shifted it. Alright? And we've studied that the Pope said your surname belongs to the church. You have to look up the word belong, because it doesn't mean what you think. You know what I'm saying? Again, that's another pointer for you. But this is the issue. This thing. And we just let me have a look now, so I don't cock this up. Transition that, and if I knock this off, and I have to knock that off. There he is with the book. Yep, that's him swearing his oath, his coronation oath, on this book. Yep, Welby's the one holding it, who is the bastard child of, is it Churchill's private secretary? Yeah, so it all still rolls around Churchill. There he is. There he is giving it a snog. And another snog went on there as well. It felt like a bit of a Mafia Godfather session when William gave him the kiss on the cheek. I think, is that the kiss of death? I don't know. Because it's the changes that are going on with this monarch that they're interested in rather than him. Right? If they can blag you to accept this shindig, then for the next monarch they can really change things. Right? Now Nostradamus says this guy doesn't last long, and they will be surprised who actually takes up the mantle. Another interesting figure in this gig is Penny Mordaunt. She's got quite a history in relation to what would to me look clearly like she's planned to ensure a certain role, and she came into power 2010, and she's been given, each following her roles that she's been given, you can see that they're using her for something. So one wonders who that little Flossie actually is. Now, New York Times put up, it says, in his first remarks to the coronation ceremony, King Charles III set the theme for the intimate yet grand proceedings. He will be anointed with holy oil, and the Archbishop of Canterbury will place the crown of St. Edward on his head. I come not to be served, but to serve. Right? Is that interesting? So if he comes to serve, who's he serving? Okay? And then there's his first remarks, and we've got the New York Times to thank for that. Now, let me have another look. It's doing that now. So it's playing silly buggers with me. So why is that not transitioning? That should have transitioned, but it doesn't. Just let me have a look. Is it transitioned? No, it's not transitioning. So I don't understand why it does that. Just bear with me, chaps. Because it really shouldn't be doing what it's doing. Wait a minute, have I got, I think, no, it's my fault. Right, there we go. It should come up now. No. Yeah, no. Well, it doesn't half annoy me when it does this. Do it one more shot and then I'll have to. You see if I do it. My apologies for that. Right, so that's that. Now, Penny Mordaunt, Conservative member of the House of Commons, who's been continuously in Parliament since 6th of May. Did you get that? 6th of May. Lord Lyon's Special Court. Okay. So what we're seeing here, we can see now the jocks. We can see the Scottish system for what it really is. It is the problem, and it's been the problem since Robert the Bruce shafted Scotland by tying itself to the black nobility. Alright? 6th of May, chaps, 2010. So it's 13 years to the coronation on the 6th of May with the Flossie holding the sword, a sword. What is the sword? Is it what it's supposed to be? So just look. She, in 2010, assumed office for Portsmouth North incumbent. 3rd of April 2010, she was in office, Minister for Women and Equalities. Right? Equalities. We're going to have a look at that. What is equality according to the BBC and the state and this wench? In office again, November 2019, Secretary of State for International Development. Okay? Secretary of State for Defence. Yeah? 2019. So under Truss, signing his PESCO, this little Flossie, were in power. Leader of the House of Commons, Lord President of the Council. Right? And that's this Flossie. 6th of May 2010, stood in front of him with a sword, 6th of May 2023. Right? Important, this woman. This symbolism, this occult garbage is very, very important. Now, just a brief quote of the Lord Lyon. You can see this, can't you? Yes, you can. According to Lord Lyon, the Lyon Court, Scottish Gaelic Court and Lyon, is a standing court of law based in New Register House in Edinburgh, which regulates heraldry in Scotland. The Lyon Court maintains the Register of Grants of Arms, known as the Public Register of all arms and bearings in Scotland, as well as records of genealogies. The Lyon Court is a public body and the fees for grant of arms are paid to HM Treasury. It is headed by the Lord Lyon King of Arms, who must be legally qualified as he is criminal jurisdiction in heraldic matters, and the court is fully integrated into the Scottish legal system, including having a dedicated prosecutor, known in Scotland as a procurator fiscal. Okay. Its equivalent in England, Wales and Northern Ireland in terms of awarding arms is the College of Arms, which is a royal corporation and not a court of law. The High Court of Chivalry is a civil court in England and Wales with jurisdiction over cases dealing with heraldry. Right? Can you see? Why are we not on the College of Arms? Why were it not done on a day that relates to something English? No. It's all being carried out under the Jock the Who's, the Aggie Squeezers. Now, no offence to you, Jocks. I know that you're thick and you don't know your ass from your elbow because you've never paid attention to this, because you're swoon on the fact that the Yanks think every Scottish person shits gold. Yeah, Templar gold. It's a load of shit you've been had. And if you lived in Glasgow, you'd know you've been had, because the way the police have dealt with the Jocks in Glasgow since the 70s is more akin to house arrest, etc. Really tough up there on the Jocks. This is why. Yeah, so there we go. I'm obviously going to put these up. You can have a good look at these. Yeah, oh look, he looks alright. Proper colonial dunny boy. Yeah. So I'll put this off. Obviously, I'll put this on. Who's the incumbent at the moment? Currently, Dr. Joseph Morrow. CBE, KSTJ. Yeah, that's nice. The Thistle, is it? And KC. And he was appointed 2014, sworn in before the Lord President of the Court of Session, 27th February 2014. In that role, he took part in the royal procession at the coronation of Charles III. There you go. He's got a wig on. He's hiding. So there's your premise to this occult side of this gig in relation to why May the 6th. So, of course, you should always keep your eyes out for what happens on May the 6th. You can check back now. But also, more importantly, November the 6th is also Lord Lyon's Special Court. So there are 2 days. Yeah. Spring, autumn. Yeah. Again, there are important connotations from the occult perspective to May to November. Alright? Interesting stuff. We'll not get into that anyway, because it's a long time since I studied all that, and I might not actually be as in remembrance of a lot of the jargon and may take it off track somewhat. But there we're seeing now, we can see that this entire gig is about shifting us out of England into the arms of bonnie Scotland. Not the Jocks, the power system, the black nobility. Alright? So, there's that. Now, what else do I want to look at? Let me think. So this is, what's this? Coronation, Charles and Camilla. I did want to look at this for somewhere, and I forgot what. I think it was down at the oath. It's just something about the oath itself that's just took place. It says, before administering the oath, the Archbishop of Canterbury acknowledged the existence of multiple faiths and beliefs in the United Kingdom. Charles then took the coronation oath, in which he swore to govern each of his countries according to their respective laws and customs, to administer law and justice with mercy, and to uphold Protestantism in the United Kingdom, and to protect the Church of England. Well, he's lying from the get-go, just as his wife did, his mother did, because, as I've just described, Church of England is under Vatican II. That's Rome, Catholicism. So there's a lie. There's everybody that were in that Westminster Abbey, everybody that's hoity-toityed up to be amazing and fantastic, is bullshitting you. They're telling big porkies. Now, either they're telling porkies because they're thick, which is generally the case, or they're shilling. Alright? Because the last thing they want you to see is that bonnie Scotland is taking you over. Why Scotland? Because, of course, the Scottish constitutional realm operates under Roman law, not English law. Alright? So they're almost there in relation to obscuring England off the face of everything. Are you going to let them? Are you seeing the game, the gig, what they're playing at? Alright? Again, I'll put these up for you to look at your leisure. Now, in relation to the request that everybody takes an oath, because they're that desperate for your energy, you see. So there he is, out fat fingers, signing us off into the Noahide. When Lambeth Palace had visited a course of millions swearing their allegiance to Charles III and his heirs and successors at the coronation, it was doubtlessly intended as a patriotic ritual that would bring the nation together. So far, the invitation has indeed received a fairly broad consensus, though not exactly one of support. As commentators from across the political spectrum have pointed out, this oath is problematic for many reasons. One is that it's meaningless. Another is that it is not actually an oath. So this is you, if you thought it's meaningless. The linguist and philosopher J.L. Austin introduced the concept of the Performative Speech Act in 1955. You can think of this almost as a magical incantation. So Speech Act, we're talking Parliament. Okay? So in essence, they've done that to try and so Parliament can go, everybody's agreed! Because they have, of course. The first thing that happened when they announced the old girl Flossie dying was so you saw all these tits taking the oath to fat fingers. Alright? So basically, that's just a piece, just explaining to you that idea of an oath is meaningless. So even if you did do it because you were stupid, you changed your mind, doesn't matter. It were meaningless anyway. So I tried to find a full text in written. I can't. They're still going on about what might be done on the day, blah, 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 blah. So it doesn't really matter that we need to go through these, but I will put these up for you to look at after. We used to only promise to swear government the United Kingdom, Great Britain, Northern Ireland and other realms of the territories to any of them belonging and obtaining according to the respective laws and customs. I solemnly promise so to do. Yeah, will you, to your power, cause law and justice and mercy to be executed in all your judgments? I will. And King kneels at the chair of estate, and the Archbishop says, will you, to the utmost of your power, maintain the laws of God? Which God? Okay? And because Zionism, of course, they've attached the Talmudic God to the God of the Gospels and the God of the Old Testament, because everybody's thick. Laws of God and the true profession of the Gospel. The true profession. Now, Templars claim they have the true profession, do they not? And it's not in sync with what we see as Christianity. Can you see? See Scotland, you see Templars. Okay? You see Templars, if you're looking from today, see Teutonic Knights. The Prussian Empire. Okay? Black nobility. Rome the Empire. Your power to maintain in the United Kingdom the Protestant Reformed religion established by law. Alright? Protestant Reformed religion. Well, that's not happening because we're under Vatican II. Will you maintain and preserve inviolably and the settlement of the Church of England and the doctrine, worship, discipline and government thereof? Bullshit. It's operating nothing that was settled of the church. You see, again, Church of England means church away from England. It just gets worse. Look, trust me when I say to you, if you're looking for where this is playing out, this is where it is. What is the Church of England today? What is it? Because it's not what you think it is. It's not what were ever settled on this land with consent of the public, the people. All this I promise to do. So, but that isn't exactly what he said. That was a preamble before what they thought he might say. And then, of course, we have what the Queen did. So, again, I'll put these up so you can have it, because it's not big. It's not huge. But what she did said, she said, Archbishop said, will you to the utmost of your power maintain the laws of God and the true profession of the gospel? Will you to the utmost of your power maintain the United Kingdom and Protestant Reformed religion established by law? Will you maintain and preserve inviolably the settlement of the Church of England and the doctrine, worship, discipline and government thereof, as by law established in England? Yeah, as by law established. Now, that is a funny word. That also shouldn't be. Because England, in England, can be classed as anywhere England has imperial footprint. The correct term should be on England, because then its laws made on the land called England. So this is what she said, and we know that that were a fraud anyway, but these are the ways that they baffle you with their word wizardry. And will you preserve unto the bishops and clergy of England? Yeah? That's not in Charles, is it? And will you preserve unto the bishops and clergy of England? And to the churches they're committed to their charge. Yeah? All such rights and privileges are by law to do appertain to them or any of them. The reason why they can't do that is because the new bishops of the clergy of England are all these fruit bat African voodoo exposed crazies that know nothing and don't really care that they know nothing They're happy to talk bollocks every day, every Sunday at the pulpit. Because the main job now is they're all stuck in with these evangelicals on the food banks, on the low-end social side of things, okay? Yeah. Right, so there you go. I'm going to put that up as well, so you can have a look at that. Now, what is the Church of England today? Well, it's Vatican II, we've said. Sorry, I cannot play with my nose. But I'm having some problems with the ears. Because if they're aggravating me, if I pull them, then they're aggravated because I've made them sore. So I know I'm always messing with my nose, but it is that. I try my best to keep my hands still, but I know, because it's annoying when I'm watching it back, so it must be annoying you. So we're looking in now, what is the Church of England here? What's the difference? And what is it that he's just oathed himself to uphold? Not necessarily the Church of England, but the Archbishop. So what does he represent? Now, Sir Paul Marshall. Now, this guy is the chairman and CIO of Marshall Waste, which is a massive hedge fund. It's headquartered in Adelphi House, which, again, is the centre of all things Hanoverian, black nobility. He's also the chairman of Ark Schools. Now, you know I've blagged on about Ark Schools. Patron being William, Prince William, okay, the Prince of Wales. It's a paedophile ring, okay. It's a paedophile ring, and it ties into Dutra via EIM. I've shown you that on these live streams before. We don't have to go through it again, but I can put it up under this video for people who are new to this and want to see how this is all interconnected. It says he's also chairman of Art Schools, a chain of 40 academies, and founder of the Education Policy Institute and of the Marshall Institute for Philanthropy and Social Entrepreneurship. Paul is married to Sabina, and they have been worshipping at HTB, okay, since 1997. They have 2 flea bags, okay. Now, let's have a little shufty through here. We partner with Church of England Diocese to plant vibrant and transformational churches in strategic locations across the nation. The Church Revitalisation Trust is a catalyst for church planting that will see 100 resource churches and hundreds of other churches and sites planted and revitalised in strategic cities, towns and areas of high deprivation across the country, bringing revitalisation to the church and seeing communities transformed. Right? What have I just told you that I witnessed? This very thing. This is what they're doing. Right? So this is why you've got more blacks in the pictures, and you've got these happy clappy fruitcakes in a Church of England building. Okay, this is the game. Alright? Let's have a look. So what we do. What else do we have in here? Meet our team. Let's have a look at these satanic pricks. Why not? Let's name and shame them. Oh, look, we've got to look at them there. Oh, they look so hip and woke. Sarah Jackson, Kim Vaudry, Polly Hughes, Modupe Oguinigi, Mark Elsden-Dew, Julian Powell, Ray Driscoll, Anthony Goddard. Remember, these are Satanists. Grace Kang, Andrew Parsons, Benjamin Bridges, Harry Heath, Victoria Fulton, Veronica Sutton, Jeremy Jennings, Tom Lane, Penny Miller, John O. Simpson, Sam Foley, Andy Thompson, Anna Keane, Ed Stalker, Phil Gray, Rosie Gisborne, Robin Herriot, Jonathan Dean, Tom Hobbs, Aidan Gilbert, Ben Atkins, Harriet Watts, Jake Thomas, Simon Reeside. Now, the patron. Look at that fat face. Look at the state of that. Is that something you'd expect to be spiritual and in touch with heavens? Absolutely not. That is the face of a tosser. The Right Reverend and Right Honourable Lord Charteris, who, within the ceremony, handed to Charlie Boy the rod of equity and mercy. Alright? So this guy who handed Charles the rod of equity and mercy, Lord Charteris, is a player for this new Church of England. Right? There he is. Says Right Reverend and Right Honourable Lord Charles of Wilton, KCVO, was Bishop of London from 1995 to 2017 and is a patron of CRT. Bishop Richard is married to Caroline and has 4 kids, 4 flea bags. And there we have another African voodoo master, Bishop Karowe. Reverend Dr. Wayne Karobe Doig was the 13th Bishop of Woolwich. He was consecrated in Southwark Cathedral on St Patrick's Day, 17th March 2017, and is a patron of CRT. Bishop Karowe is married to Mozun, and they have an adult son, Timmy, who is married to Ilf. Trustees: Bimpe Nkonchu, Naomi Maxwell, Eric Lewis Lawson Johnson, Jeremy Erriman. So let's have a look who's these. So he's a qualified lawyer, he's Bimpe. Look, he's into family services. He's after your kids. So he'll be probably ready when these food banks offer you 3 handouts. Before you get the first one, you have to sign an intervention order. Once you've gone for 3 handouts, they then activate the order and take the kids off you because you can't support your offspring. Also known as children. And Naomi Maxwell is a discipleship director and lead pastor of Shoreditch, which is a female for a start. I mean, they can say that they accept it all now, but Christianity isn't this, so they can't claim to be Christians, whether they cry about it all day long or not. And she's into psychology and sociology from the University of Cambridge. Oh, she's a parliamentary researcher to the Archbishop of Canterbury. Theology, ministry and mission. Well, I've seen your theology, darlings. It's shit. You're thick, retarded, because you're satanic. That is it. Naomi is particularly passionate about empowering those on the margins to recognise God's calling, so that the church worship, discipleship and growth will better reflect the kingdom of God here on earth. Kingdom of God here on earth. Yeah, so it's the garden. So she's a garden fruitcake. Eric Lawson Johnson, co-founder of Kinrise. Kinrise is focused on community-enhancing investments in companies and buildings across the UK and the US. He is based between Oxfordshire and Uruguay, and his wife, 2 daughters, 2 dogs and his chickens. That's supposed to make him be hip. And really, can you see, look, they're all over from Africa. Okay, there's something seriously twisted about Africa, and I'm not suggesting that it's always been there, but these networks have been in Africa for so long, screwing it up. If it wasn't already there, it's certainly been imported, and now they're exporting it out to everybody else through the church. Jeremy Herman. Jeremy Herman is co-founder and CEO of Ferox Capital, a fund management company. He has a variety of philanthropic interests and he's focused on environmental issues, reflecting his passion for the countryside. Archie Coates, Vicar of Holy Trinity. So he studied theology at Oxford, so obviously he's another voodoo master. Toby Baxendale, entrepreneur, investor, Ironman triathlete. Oh, for God's sake. Angus Winther, working on investment banking. Oh, good grief. Holy Trinity Brompton, that's a proper piece of work. I've looked into that. Ade Adibajo, investment banker, security investment, associated corporate treasurers. Holy Trinity Brompton. I mean, that is a proper mind-controlled fruit bat trainer. Current secretary Chelsea Deanery, Synod, elected member of London Diocese and Synod with strong Anglican roots from his upbringing in Nigeria. Can you see now? Everything I said to you before, they don't think, yeah, he's always acting on African voodoo merchants. Yes, they fucking are. Sir Paul Marshall, chairman of CIO of Marshall Wace Hedge Fund, and he's also chairman of the paedophile network Art Schools, which has a chain of 40 academies, which you'll have a look, and founder of the Education Policy Institute and of the Marshall Institute for Philanthropy and Social Entrepreneurship. Okay, Nicky Gumbel. This is where we start to get to the crutch of it. This is a prize fruit bat. Gumbel is a pioneer of Alpha, an introduction to the Christian faith running in churches of all denominations in 140 countries. He has written several best-selling books, including Why Jesus?, Questions of Life, and The Jesus Lifestyle. Having initially trained as a barrister, Nicky went on to oversee Holy Trinity Brompton, a large centre. See, Holy Trinity Brompton, this is where all these freaks come from. These are where all your voodoo masters are coming out of. Married to Pippa, they now work to support Alpha globally. They are also the authors of daily Bible commentary called The Bible in 1 Year, which is over 2 million global subscribers. Okay, so there's the jolly team of assholes. that Charlie Boy has just signed up. What we do, church plants, developing leaders, social transformation. Yeah, we've looked at the Air Lords, haven't we? Behaviour change, all this is connected. They're all Zionist tied Noahides. News, training and research support. So there's your CRT. So look, is there anything else we want to look at? Who are we? Born out of HTB's 30 year church, which is Holy Trinity Brompton, yeah? 30 years of church planting experience, church revitalisation trust, CRT, exits accelerate church growth by planting and revitalising churches. Yeah. So there you can see they're pumping Satanism of the voodoo kind on Blighty. Yeah? Look, let's just get it right. Oh, we have to have two black guys. Now, I'm not being racist, but I know what's going on. And I will say that I know what's going on and I'll speak it. And I don't really care if it upsets folk like this fruit bat that we're going to look at. Look at this fruit cake here. Honestly, it's Fruit Bats United, the whole show. Look at this freak. Bridgerton star Adjoa Ando, whoever that is, looks like a bit of an alien, but stuns ITV presenters by calling the Buckingham Palace balcony terribly white. Now, I know these retards, these narcissists, are still infantile and have probably been damaged beyond our comprehension. But that is the most racist garbage I've ever heard in my life, considering she sat in a fucking white nation. Now, I know politics and media would like to pretend we're not a white nation. This nation is a white nation. White people built it. Maybe back in the day the Moors had a big part in it. That's a fact, and I'm not taking that away from them. But let's not pretend that these African voodoo masters are anything to do with the likes of the Moors. This is a fruitcake system created by the colonists pushing communism across Africa, which is what the British Empire did. And if you want to know where that comes from, read Dr. John Coleman's work. MI6 or MI5 put into the Congo, realised very quickly they were implementing communist regimes across Africa. That's when he learns about the Committee 300, or the Olympians as they call themselves, operating above all global governance as we see it. Okay, so there you go. Now, that there is an absolute diatribe of a character. Okay, because I'm focusing on character. I'm not interested in the colour of her skin. But see, obviously this critter is obsessed with race and colour. But this is the clever bit. Now, this priesthood, the word wizards, is so fantastic at attacking somebody, and then before the victim gets a chance to react, they then accuse that victim again of being the perpetrator. This is what these people are, the narcissists. We used to call them gamma personalities. Okay, that's what they are. They're the most manipulatable people you can imagine, because they are based in angst, hatred, and they project themselves across everything. Okay, so yeah, it was a white face facade because this is a white honky nation. No matter how much you want to cry about it, it's a white nation. White people built it. But I'll give you this: white people have also destroyed it, which is why you get on the telly and people like you, who are actually the real racists and the people that are obsessed with colour and race, not me. But I'm going to pinpoint your character. You're an abomination, cock. And whoever's putting you on telly, there is where the problem is. Yeah? Because she's pushing hatred. Nothing else. And she's probably part of Black Lives Matter. Well, I've said this before. I've said it before many times. If you want to push Black Lives Matter, to me, is important. There's no way would I ever disagree that that's not a good aim. But until I see black females and black males understanding that until they break the chain and realise that they can only get what it is they want out of life when they start to realise that you have to nurture your offspring. That your dick and your fanny isn't just to parade around, talk about, be good about and big it up. It's about bringing up and nurturing your offspring, and then the next generation has got some kind of balance, got some kind of decorum, it can actually make something of its life instead of blaming everybody else in the world for their own problems. It's got nothing to do with that. It really hasn't. Somebody's just sent me a black screen, Sean. Still black screen? Is it still a black screen? Shouldn't be. Can somebody just let me know if we're on a black screen or not there? Well, they say Moors and Muslims, it's not necessarily as cut and dried as that. They were Berbers originally, the early Moroccans, not necessarily Islamic, but obviously they were enveloped by it at different stages. But the Moors were slavers, and you look at any images from ancient times or older times of the Moors, all the harems were full of white slaves, all of them. Right, so it's not, I don't know what happened there, that's good if we're back. So, can you see what it is I'm trying to get across? Because GBN News, total garbage, just totally no idea about what he's talking about. Or he's diverting you, he wants you to fuss about this by making you think that law, which is claimed to uphold, is government. It's not. Law is land, government are on equity. Completely different game altogether. And you're in agreement with this because you're IDing as the equitable title, the SQV side, right? It is on us. And I've papped on about this forever and ever and ever, amen. And it's just so difficult for people to get. But until you start to recognise that, then all you're ever doing when you go to court, when you communicate with the state, is you're showing them consistently that you haven't got a clue how to settle and manage your estate. Yeah? You can't even manage the equitable side. There's no way they're going to let you run loose with the land rights side. Right? You can't do it. However, while you're still going on ID, all this shenanigans is going on in the background. Yeah? And all of it is going to be moved into this no-hide. That's what Fat Fingers has just signed off. That's why we have no idea what's in that book. That's why we're not going to find out what's in that book. But you've got to acclaim this as correct. You're accepting it. Then it's on. Then when these things starts to fall down on you, you can't cry your eyeballs out. Because now is the time to start to make an effort. Now is the time to be concerned. Alright? Now. And it doesn't matter whether you're Scottish or English or Welsh or Northern Irish. It matters. It matters that you get to understand first what a constitutional monarchy is. Because it is still one of the, if it works correctly, one of the greatest means of operating a nation. If you can show me one different, go ahead. I mean, we can say republic, i.e. United States. It's not worked, has it? It didn't work. Same gig. It's the same gig. Constitution, Commonwealth is land. You're all in commerce because you're IDing on that SQV trust. Yeah? I mean, is this picture now, the murky mist around this because we've filled ourselves with garbage, is it starting to sink in? Just the simplicity of the way the game works, but the complexity as we see it. Anyway, let's have a break and I'll have a look at what you guys are saying. Me says, hello Sean, men, women and things. We are male, we are man, male, female. We don't want to be women, and here, that's a critter that's subservient and will lie under Adam. Okay? We don't want to be Adam either. We're not of Adam, are we? Well, I'm certainly not. Hence the rhesus neg. We're not that line. We're not of that. Mewpick, good evening to all who attend the Wise Asylum and hello to me. Hello to you, Mew. Paul says, evening Sean, everyone. Good evening, Paul. I all says Oak Tree. Slipknot says, alright Sean and everyone. June says, good evening all, good evening to you, June. Church of England higher than C. Explain. LFX has got the gigs on. Me says Vatican. So is that higher than Vatican? No, it's not, darling. Have you been to a Church of England sermon in the last 10 years? It's Vatican II. I made an issue out of it, and an old school Church of England. I don't know who he were, but he arrived when I started causing trouble. And I could tell that this guy understood the game in a big way. And so there is a semblance of it within the clergy, still to this day, that understand the gig. But they don't have a voice, do they? Because they don't have a congregation. James Stephen Emery says, not my queen. No, it's a horse's head, that, isn't it? I mean, he must have loved horses just a little bit too much when he was a flea bag, I would say. But let's not get personal. I mean, let's not get personal. All right, the guy has upheld the law, so that means he's now. That book is the book is what we need to know. We cannot consent to his seat of sovereignty if we don't know what's in that book. I know what's in that book. No hide, no hide, no hide. That's what's in it. I know it. But you lot need to know it. It needs to be demanded. Though we see, or it gets published, exactly what's in that book. Now that'd be a good way to move it, actually. We want it fully publishing. But how are they going to prove it's that book? You see, when they're doing it via television and you've got no real English aristocracy left, they're all Zionized, either they're blackmailed or whatever, I don't know. They've come in equal terms with the king, I don't know. But they're happy, they're secure in their land rights, etc. Be they tenants or be they not. The Zionized aristocracy are comfortable with this shindig. Because in their eyes it's not going to affect them. I would say you've been deceived. That you are deceived because you're dumbasses. Alright? Yeah, Mark Orford says, evening Mark. The Crown. Well, we're suppose we're going to have to look into the Crown at some point, aren't we? We have early on in game, but not to a degree. Lex Van Man loves the Queen, he's shill. Me says, see the white glove for War of the Roses. The white glove has a lot of Masonic meanings. I have had white gloves sent to me in the past by the brethren, if they like what I was saying, or if they had other people from their lodges around in my circle at any given time, they would try and make it up. We know. And I know this, to all brethren, I know the crack. Alright? I know what the prophecies were originally in relation to me. I know this stuff. But I was teaching you something when I left that Mr. School on the other side, and that was to show you, you're being deceived. All of you. You know, you're being deceived. And surely you can see it now. Surely you can see it now that the brethren, the lodges, you're being deceived, and you're the ones, by not upholding England, that are allowing this. Let's have a look here. Me says, see the date on it. 2022. I'm sure it said 2023, Chuck, because I did watch it, but I haven't watched it again since, which I probably should have done. Me says, did not just change the coronation, they changed the Bible. Well, this is what we're talking about. You see, there is no two coronation oaths the same. No monarch has took the same exactly as another. So we know that they do change. But it's the Bible, the book that is sworn his oath on. That's the important part. Yeah, I've shown you, it's Rothschilds that are controlling this. They wouldn't control it and move it in any way other than them being the beneficiaries. The beneficiaries in their side is just putting in this no-hard system. EM, Real Stone of Scorn. Did you see the Grim Reaper in background walk fast in a crowd? Well, I'll tell you what I know about the Stone of Scorn. It could very well be some similar kind of, a bigger chunk of what's in the old Kaaba, in the Mecca, that they have all the military wing of this priesthood Islam. But that came in when? Templars, remember. You remember this stuff? Stone of Scorn. Did you see the Grim... Oh. Divorced from the Church of England and made himself King of Faith. Well, it's the Scotland, the Presbyterian Church. They're the problem. They're the problem. They're the ones that allowed, along with the Dukes of Marlborough, Cromwell. And they changed the Parliament. Yeah, he created Commonwealth Parliament, remember? Because they were about to launch colonisation. Soon as East India had got its base here from the works of Cromwell and Monk, General George Monk, in they came. Everything came here. Whigs. So they got into Parliament as Whigs, Presbyterians. All this is coming out to Aggie Squeezer land. And the Aggie Squeezers don't give a shit because they just happen to hate the English, even though there's more Scottish in England than there's ever been born in Scotland. How ridiculous is it? And I'm not attacking you jocks, I love you jocks. But you're not as smart as you think. Just like the English, you're not as smart as they think. Because we had the smartest generation on the planet ever on England. Which is why they chose that particular generation to actually carry out this fraud. The baby boomer. They think they're the smartest generation ever to have been because they landed on the moon. They won the Second World War. Well, they didn't. Their mum and dad did. But they were born in it, and they think they were in it. Because they've watched 63 Squadron and The Great Escape many times, as have I. So I know it programs you when you're that way out. You hover in that, the essence of the picture it pulls out, when you go through all that. It's fucking force, man. Me says, left Catholic for Church of England. PY Music, evening all. You're late. How do you be late? Baden. Me, Archbishop, was former top guy, BP Shell. EM Real, she born in Chinese year of Ox. You can't assign Baal to the ox, for goodness sake. The Chinese system is nothing like... I mean, the rat is revered in China. Here is cause of every scam going, just because they told you that in history. EM Real, Lord of Witchcraft and Spellcasting. When is Charlie's birthday date? He's on November. Cos says, gigs and smiley face. Alright, Cos. EM, Trump was in Scotland at the same time, 6 kilometres away from this gig. Yes, he was. These devils, pigs in the parlour. Well, Trump is King Cyrus, the emancipator of the captive. Yeah? Jesus Christ is King, every knee will bow. I don't remember him ever saying he were king. To be honest. They assigned the term, because it's all the fruit baits and annoyed in them terms, but I don't remember him ever saying anything like that. In truth. Lexmore, Esau spoke Aramaic. Esau, Yeshua. Did he? How do you know? Were you there? The Druids, Ben McBrady, the last of them, said, the Gaelic Druid said clearly, he was a teacher over there, they brought him over, initiated him, and then he went back to Palestine to preach the gospel, which were already here under the Druidic system, as was before before the priesthood took it over, nicked the Kabbalic system and inverted it and gave it to everybody else in this format. Esau God hated. Well, you might just be a little bit too Zionized, me old China. Allah is the God of war. Well, if you study the Sumerian data, I'm not talking about Sitchin, Allah was the son of Sin. Nanor Sin had a son called Allah, and he was a rebel. So he was actually a physical man called Allah in the Sumerian lore, and he was the son of Nanor Sin. It doesn't mean to say we're talking about the same thing. You are correct. The Quran is, in essence, a book of how to war. There is no house of peace in it. It's a house of war. Now, where the Muslims, in my opinion, are mixed up, it's the rules of engagement if you're at war, whereas they see it as just that is it. So they're in constant flux of war. Because, of course, after Muhammad died, what happened? It just became war. Because they were all fighting each other and killing everybody that they could in order that they could become the power within it. And, of course, the Quran wasn't penned until almost, I think, 285 years after the event. Yeah. Muhammad never wrote anything down. Jesus never wrote anything down either. They were of the spoken word. And Muhammad was actually illiterate. It was his wife, Aisha, that we know anything, basically. And she had quite a lot to say about him when you get into the hadiths and some of the surah texts that I know a lot of Muslims have never been made aware of. But that's not on me. I'm not a Muslim. That's for Muslims to work out. I am mixed with Mary Claire, shall not cleave one to another, Roman Catholic. Okay, let's just not turn this into a religious sermon, because that's not what we're about, to be honest. But thanks for your input, EM. I need to get it happy clappy. Lol, they are the happy clappies. Disciple of the Maya says, one peace and grace, Brother Sean and family. Well, the same to you, sir. Lex Smart says, Moors were Muslims. They definitely were in the latter times, but I'm not 100% sure we fully understand who the Moors actually were, in truth. We only know of what we know of them, of the latter part of it. But my hands are up. I don't know. I don't know enough about the Moors, in truth. Right, so then you're back on now, yeah. Good. No black screen. Well, if you look at, we've got Clayton Lemurs. Yeah. And other bloodlines around here were all tied to Stoniers, so they came through the Catholic side of things. So I would suggest, if anything, the Moors were probably originally Catholic. But then they got annihilated, didn't they, enveloped by Islam in North Africa. And then they started to move up into Spain. Equity. Yeah, exactly. And this is where people are not getting it. This is why people are still battling. You know, if you want to start, people say, I want to control your state, what I want. Well, if you want to control your state, you better start thinking about, well, how do I do that? Because every time you shout and scream at the state, the blah-de-blah, because you're going, you're showing them one thing. This fool doesn't know fuck all, and he's certainly not going to get hold of this estate here and fuck it up. Create a constructive trust, and bang, you're going to get bumped. Right, so, look, I was an idiot that did that for years, because that's what I thought it was. That's how I thought I understood it, but I was wrong. South of the Messiah says, you need to be recognised as the age of majority first in general. Yes, you do, so you can't take it as a young flossy. And equity is in persona. Right. Now then, what else did I want to look at? What else were it? Let me think. I'm sure there was something else. Oh yes, we actually ended that, didn't we? Hang on. Let me see. Is this going to flip over? Why does it do that? I don't know why it does it. It's done it again. Let me just. I think that does me head. I think I have to do that and then start it again. There we go. So if I put that done. Hey, we're getting there a bit quicker. Good. Right, so CRT, remember, big part of Church of England, and they're all about revitalising the church. I went through it before all this about this Africanisation of the church, which is why so many of these fruitcakes are running around giving it the big white honky stuff and calling us racist because they're all obsessed with race. We're all part of this changing or transformation of society, as they call it. So, let's have a little look here. I mean, I know we've gone through this a little bit before, but maybe on the back of this, it's important that people really start to understand what this satanic system is. So for that, we're going to go here. Now, Alpha's Rose leads to Rome. As well as saying leads to Rome, and in fact the expression was used by Michael D. Semlin as the title of his excellent book that exposes the efforts of Rome to utilise the modern ecumenical movement as a means of bringing separated brethren back into the Pope's flock. In the March-June 2004 issue of Alpha News, there is a detailed account of a visit by Nicky Gumbel, we had that name in that CRT, didn't we? And his wife Pippa and their son Johnny to Rome. And in the course of the visit, they were presented to the Pope by Father Renario Cantalamessa, preacher to the papal household. Father Cantalamessa has featured previously on the front page of Alpha News. In the last year, he was guest preacher at Holy Trinity Brompton. Not only did Nicky Gumbel meet the Pope at the end of the general audience, but he also met representatives of the Congregation of the Doctrine of Faith. Right? That's the term for what we know as the Inquisition. The Congregation of the Doctrine of Faith, that's the modern name for the Inquisition. Which were mainly Dominicans, by the way. The last to be pulled into the shift that It's interesting because they were actually the last bunch of monks to hold out on the changes made by the Carolingians on changes to land ownership. Yet, when they did, they became the most fanatical, and they run the Inquisition. Interesting. So it says, who's behind the Alpha Course? Church is Billy Graham. No surprise there. Holy Trinity Brompton, Roman Catholic Church, Brownsville Assembly of God in Pensacola, Florida. Andrew St. Paul's United Church, Wall Street United Church, St. Paul's Cathedral, London. Norwich Cathedral, Coventry Cathedral, York Minster, Brentwood Roman Catholic Cathedral, Wakefield Cathedral, St. Albans Abbey, Winchester Cathedral, World Council of Churches, which is an ecumenical movement. Now then, to really get insight into the Alpha Course, we go to Freightus 616. So we're over there in Australia. So I'm going to give you a bit more of an in-depth so that it works in sync and it's in your minds on the back of what happened yesterday, the coronation. This is the Alpha Course. Now put this together in about 2009, I think. But I think this guy died 25th of March 2004. So let's have a look. It says, by Arthur Christian Aloysius Fosdyke. Peter Norsagonen, Freightus 616, died on Tuesday the 25th of March 2004. Prior to his death, I received sole custody of his literary estate and under the terms of his trust deed, full control subsequent to his demise. Among the materials, this disjointed essay concerning the Alpha Lodges. I have felt it necessary to edit very little of this work, although legal considerations have ensured that some names and details were excised. It was his intention to have this published in the popular media. The Alpha Lodges do exist. Evidence leaves no doubt. Freightus 616 died as he lived, an enigma. His intelligence connections and influential friends miss him. Australia's Global Satanic Legacy and Future, Part 1, by Freightus 616. I will go down to the altars in hell to Satan, the giver of life. O Prince of Darkness, hear me. Our Father which wert in heaven, hallowed be thy name in heaven as it is on earth. Give us this day our ecstasy and deliver us to evil, as well as temptation, for we are your kingdom for aeons and aeons. So obviously this is the satanic shit. Satanism flourishes beneath the scintillating midnight blue wet streets and bedeviling phosphorescent lights of Australia's glittering capital cities. Its practitioners are from all walks of life, although Marginal types and those with predisposing personalities have always and will always be important to Satanism and its leaders' ends. They are merely tools. Their antinomian influence is now so pervasive as not to be readily noticed. Amongst the highest echelons, some are politicians, medical doctors, high-ranking police officers, lawyers, advertising gurus, decorated military men, media personalities, fashion models. Yeah, decorated military men. What have you got rising up there in the old Oz? Yeah, an ex-crapper. Fashion models and social workers. Essential. Amongst the lowest, usually temporary, ranks are prostitutes, minor drug dealers and a number of high school students. Some operate from the mists, their victims are drip-fed straight amnesia by an assortment of mind control measures and psychological torture tactics that would leave any normal person numb with the dawning apprehension that things are not as they seem, and they have not been so for a long, long time. The most talented amongst them have lifestyles maintained on crime, but lacquered with a thin veneer of respectable professionalism and knowledge. They dress with elegance, timeless and calculating, networking and conspiring in a dream that money alone cannot purchase. Often their personalities are of a force that distorts the contours, both of judgment and of everyday perception. I cannot mention every name, but I will drop enough clues. The doctors refuse to say exactly how long I have. I became involved in the whole sordid business in the 1970s, a decade noted for little beyond sartorial bad taste and crushingly optimistic fatalism. The decade that began as a drug-crazed carryover of the 1960s soon bequeathed androgynous glam rock, the Watergate scandal and the shallow opportunism of rollerball. Science fictionism stalked the streets with a rejected fruitiveness bred of cowering beneath the backdrop of the Cold War and dancing with the resurrected agonies of another Asian-based imperialistic conflict. I fell through a crack in reality, because that's Vietnam. I fell through a crack in reality, having deliriously wandered amid the human wreckage and reached certain spiritual conclusions. In short, I do not know how I got there, but I know why. The 1970s were a dismal, incense-fueled time that only those who lived through it can appreciate. The comprehensive dismissal of values and the adoption of pornography as the aesthetic standard by which all endeavour was to be categorised left its impressionistic fingerprints on everybody's imagination, mine included. I guess that I analysed and reacted differently. That is how I escaped the mundane, through one of Western society's fault lines. Credo qua absurdum. I began dabbling in the black arts as an alienated university student. It was 1971 when I attended my first meeting, only to be led into an existence of happiness, sexual excess, acquisitive arousal and comfort. Within a week of meeting my Luciferian mentor, I was operating a number of travel businesses in Sydney and flying to international destinations at least 4 times a year. I had a Jaguar, city apartment, holiday home in the country, access to a yacht on Sydney Harbour and women. I was young and considered to be an up-and-coming star within the shadowy twilight of the satanic infrastructure. The netherworld was at my patent leather-soled feet. My suits were handmade Italian. The cravats and neckties, Chinese silk, and my nymphomaniac maids, French. They dressed like French maids and would often wake me with a lesbian show. At the time, the United States-based Church of Satan was the very public face of a movement that had begun almost a century before, and had culled its adherents from the renaissance of magic, which had begun in Germany and flowed in England since the dying years of the 19th century. The Church of Satan was one of the front organisations for an ancient body, whose very existence had never before been imagined. If you want more information on some of its past and most influential members, you could do worse than study the late J.P. Morgan, Doctors Jane MacDonald and Renee Hardy, the Kennedys, including Jackie, Irving Berlin, Groucho Marx, Elvis Presley, Garner Ted Armstrong, Sammy Davis Jr., Ronald Reagan, Edward Heath, Thomas Plantard de St. Clair, or a search amongst the bushes. I learned and reflected the glamour of the black arts, divination, dark meditation, sacrifice, sexual vampirism, talismans, voodoo dolls, and sex magic. My life was one of calculated access, and dazzling fulfillment. I smoked handmade Portuguese Cuban cigars. I had a personal secretary who was happy to engage in my every whim and find like-minded others if I wanted a change or had a colleague I needed to impress. I finished every day with a restaurant meal, bottle of French champagne and black massoji of unforgettable and unspeakable delight. The streets were more innocent, the people more naive. The American intelligence services still involved in funding the occult, but their influence was more ingratiating than dictatorial. In any event, many of America's high-ranking military men were members of various satanic lodges or kindred organizations, often sensitive materials and powerful figures who operated from the comfort, safety and anonymity of the dark velvet shadows, were transported on US and Australian Navy ships. Oil tankers were another favourite materials, and indeed people have been concealed and lost on oil tankers for years. Remember, this was in the 70s when American organised crime syndicates were establishing the narcotics markets of the Western world, Australia included. I knew her as Lilith, a high priestess of an ultra-secretive black order of Typhon. Hers was the easy smile of a true neurotic and the body of an angel. Her long cruel fingernails were enamelled in the chic and expensive titillations of her victims and their fantasies. Urolagnists worshipped at her feet and obeyed her every sadistic command. They were not the only ones. Her clientele included the top end of town, and she frequented the boardrooms and bathrooms of power with an essence of mystery, wealth, and alluring sluttiness that won her the attention and influence of very many. I had first met her at a stately home in her inner Sydney suburb at one of her regular black masses, held to strengthen the bonds of lust, occult knowledge and perversion. There she was indulging in the devil's faithful, teaching and being videoed for the 1970s black market that existed in underground extreme porn, bestiality, paedophilia, body wastes and pain. After her services to the Dark Lord, she told me over a reefer and through exhaustion that she was only 17 and had met the master. He had given her a mission. And if you don't think this stuff is real, mate, believe me, this is what I was being trained to in the 90s. It exists and it's all around you, even in little old Aki. Alright? Lilith was a child from one of Sydney's more self-conscious suburbs, private school educated and with a future in her father's business. She sacrificed herself to establish what is considered today by those in the know to be the most powerful and important satanic organisation in the world. That group comprises some of the most educated, wealthy, corrupt and corrupting people that have ever existed, and they operate out of Sydney, Australia, but their influence is international. It transpired that she had been flown to the United States to be tutored and initiated into what was at the time Anton LaVey's underground satanic sisterhood of professional women with an aptitude for carnality and a conscience to match. The Ordo Cave Lapham, her high school teacher and adept in the black arts, had spotted Lilith while she was still only a schoolgirl. Like all Satanists, he believed that the truth and salvation could only be found through the exploration of repressed human needs. That pornography gave joy and joy gave strength. Through his dedication and perverse ability, he secured her cooperation to begin her new education for her assigned task of political intrigue and influential debasement. After completing her education with OCL, Lilith was tortured by an English gentleman who I knew as Pindar. I never met him, but I worshipped the true father of the statutory heir. His were the Irish mysteries of degradation, and when his name was ever mentioned, Lilith would often laughingly sing, "The rosy red cheeks of the little children." Alright, so you can see what she's inferring. This is serious stuff, people. Don't think this is some fairy tale. Lilith procured children to satiate the debased lusts of many Satanists. These were taken from single girls by promises for a fee, or occasionally simply stolen. Babies were bred for the various purposes by broodmares, young unemployed girls who were paid to hand over the produce. Sometimes this magical pornography was filmed, sometimes children died. Once you have seen a young child crucified or a baby kicked to death, you are and can never be the same again. The most disturbing aspect of the black masses held in Sydney was and remains the ease with which victims were and continue to be obtained, and the lack of any effective interest by the police, although a number of police commissioners from various states were members of the order. This is not to suggest that Satanists are simply perverts or child killers. The Alpha Lodge, to which I was a member, placed a great deal of emphasis upon magic, both in theory and practice. Demons were evoked and dispatched, sigils made, and sacrifice and the letting of blood encouraged. In this regard, many who bask in their own limited knowledge believe that Aleister Crowley is the father of modern manifestations of Satanism. But this is incorrect. Perhaps Crowley is the grandfather of modern left-hand path groups, but their stepfather is Peter James Carroll, the founder of the Chaos Magic School. There are a number of reasons for this, and the various black lodges within Australia have developed from the early 20th century alliance upon recruiting from fringe Masonic groups through high magic in the 1920s. That's when they were debauching the aristocracy. Yeah, and installing the Schofield biblical text, which gave you Zionism. Law magic in the 1960s and 70s to their correct prospective candidates from amongst chaos magic practitioners, who were generally young, ambitious, enthusiastic, energetic, and destined by their lifestyle choices to the shadowy world of Satanism. A number of upmarket escort agents in Australia and elsewhere are operated by black magicians, yet brothels and pornography comprise only a small financial part of the international satanic empire. Most of the money comes from drugs, the CIA, sophisticated blackmail, money lending, and currency trading. Satanists of the highest order are behind a number of wealthy, conservative, new right Christian churches and organisations in America. These are some of contemporary Satanism's best cash flow enterprises, mostly indirectly, and allow mass indoctrination and networking. The aim of the Alpha Lodge remains literacy rates in the Western world of at least 66% by 2010, and the destruction of at least 70% of the global population by the year 2030. All governments count on the sheeple to respond in typical infantile fashions, including unconsciously identifying with a more powerful force, even if it enslaves, brutalises and humiliates them. That's called the Stockholm Syndrome. We've just seen it in perfection in the last 3 years. Most Australians perform so badly in the role of adult that they rarely achieve complete satisfaction from this process. It is the weak who must tell you they are strong. In this regard, the infiltration of the United Nations by Satanists, which began in the 1970s, has paid off extremely well already, as has the career of Henry Kissinger. It was Henry Kissinger who proposed the use of fundamentalist Christianity to bring about war, firstly in the Middle East and then globally. In this he was aided by a number of American presidents subsequent to Richard Milhous Nixon, handing over the reins to Gerald Ford, who was always one of ours. As the headquarters of international Satanism is Sydney, did you hear that? As the headquarters of international Satanism is Sydney, Australia, it is not surprising to learn that Norman Lindsay, a former Magus of the Order, is considered a satanic saint. Indeed, there are a number of flourishing secret shrines dedicated to him in his memory throughout Australia and the United Kingdom. Every equinox there are human sacrifices dedicated to him, and the subtle but perverted influence his painting and children's literature continues to have. Children's literature. Norman Lindsay. Similar shrines exist in America under Henry Kissinger's authority, but he has altered both the structure and subtle ethos of the American Alpha Lodge shrines. It was Lindsay who taught that every political solution leads to more complex and involuted problems. He counselled that the public is not concerned with satanic manipulators, but only with petty criminals and little issues which affect their insignificant lives directly. As the status quo is maintained by the masses, it gets heavier the deeper it sinks and the greater it fears. The people cannot succeed or achieve, and so must sink deeper and hold on more strongly. The fact that most people these days repeat endlessly until death relieves them speaks volumes about the subhuman condition. Kissinger refined Hitler's terror technique into a more subtle and powerful tension technique, building tension in society and then finding a scapegoat. Dark path adepts do this in significant ways until they have the power and ability to move and direct people more gross and hideous behaviours. In Australia recently, the business activity statement for taxation purposes and the immigration debate have worked exceptionally well. The war on terror has also been of incalculable international influence, even more so than LaVey's Satanic Bible continues to be. The rhetorical facade for George's presidency may be Christian, but the plan is otherwise. This is George Bush. And for all the new arrangements the sheeple have adopted, it was still safer to walk the streets in the Second World War than it is now. This is true of all capital cities of the combatant nations. Ain't that a fact? Ain't that a fact? And this is again back to Templars and the deals done with the Nazis, with these fanatical side of Islam. If you doubt the influence of Satanism in the modern world, consider the following issues. According to the World Bank, Australia is the wealthiest or second wealthiest after South Africa nation on earth. No one knows the full extent of Australia's natural resources, and yet the living standards of Australians is getting worse each year. And while Australians are amongst the most highly taxed people in the world, we are quickly heading towards third world nation status. Who owns and controls the Reserve Bank of Australia? Hint. It is the same people who own the American Federal Reserve and the Bank of England. Yeah? Look, he's telling you. Who owns? It's not us. It's not our nations. It's not our politics. It's not our monarch. Yeah? It's these. It's these people. Where are we? Why do overseas owned companies pay so little taxation in Australia? And why does the Australian government, of whichever political persuasion, allow overseas mining conglomerates to rape our environment and give Australians back next to nothing in return? Why was fluoride put in Australia's water supply? And why is it impossible to have it removed? Are you seeing a pattern here? Why is the media of the free world so heavily controlled and their shamefaced relationship to government so symbiotic? Why have the educational standards of the Western world been forced to dumb down, a process accelerated in the 1980s by both Spielberg and Lucas at the instigation of the Australian Alpha Lodge? Yeah? Star Wars, Spielberg, dumbing you down. Yeah? Why has multiculturalism been fostered upon the first world with the exception of Japan? And who was behind the September the 11th operation? Which country's intelligence agency supplied the WMD story which caused the Iraq invasion? Hint, it was not a Christian or Islamic nation. Israel. The fact is, the Alpha Lodge politicians or political advisors appreciate that if they pretend to respect the rights of the sheeple and feign interest in their concerns, even though most realise that this is a ruse, they will go along with the programmes and policies because it is the line of least resistance. Oh yeah, because you're born idle. The democratic process allows them to express some of their frustrations, reduces the pain of their pent-up depression and aggression, while ensuring that nothing changes. You can see the same representative democracy political system everywhere it has been implemented. Sheeple always use reason and logic to justify their whims, so the Alpha Lodge initiate taught to speak in moderation while convincingly offering miracles. It's only a matter of waiting for the media to generate the slogan that the government should do something, and the governments everywhere and of all political persuasions always will. Australian Satanists have always been at the forefront of high-quality videos and DVDs devoted to kiddie porn. Sheeple are such that, although they scream about the importance of justice, it's of no interest unless they are in some way harmed. Their morality is that of the herd. For the more the sheep feel isolated yet together, the easier it is for Satanists to reign. Provide the subjects with the forbidden and they feel fragmented, weak, guilty and often worthless, all of which the Master Satanist employs for their own ends. In Australian-produced paedophile entertainment, certain avant-garde features predominate: sexual frenzy, degrading treatment, filth, coprophilia, torture, rape, and death. And we're talking snuff. All of this is carefully crafted and augmented by aphrodisiacs and violence. Often the women involved are far worse than the men. Little boys agonised by the cruel fingers, long tapered fingernails, teeth, cigarettes, and perversions of ravishingly beautiful and debased female practitioners who are without restraint and have been maddened with heartless pride. Genital torture and castration are a constant theme. I will never forget the heartfelt sobs, desperate pleas, bloods, tears and screams induced by many boys by the agonising use of alligator clips, the application of the strap, whip, dildo, knee, and the torment of electric shock. Often Satan is advertising free youth culture street newspapers. This provides them with a constant supply of young teenage hopefuls to recruit or exploit, or both. Now, we had one of them guys here, Fred Skinner. Okay, Fred Skinner, the bingo king in Ironburn. Here we a man with this. I blew him out of water before he died. Often Satan is... Yep, done that. Often street kids are taken in, used and discarded. It's only another missing teenager. Coffee shops, city entertainment and complexes, and even evangelical youth-based churches are still used to this day to lure the innocent and not so innocent, their hearts full of broken dreams from broken homes. Thank you, Lionel. And of course now we've got, it's all in social services, it's all in the food bank system because they're all these evangelical Satanists. So that's your Jehovah's Witnesses, it's your Mormons, it's Seventh-day Adventists, all these fruitcake, offshoot, Masonic shit. But you see, when you look at it like that, they're not originally from Masonic. It's these satanic lodges in the Masonic. So if you can start to see it that way, you Masons, you can start to see that I'm not actually your enemy. Insofar as I understand that you are the power in this nation, if you could ever take it back. But the fact that this system is now in your lodges, running the system, and you don't have a fucking clue, is on you. Often members who have reached a certain grade, whose task and ordeal is to establish and maintain outer-temple teaching orders as a recruiting ground for the traditional satanic lodges, do so with dazzling results. Candidates are accepted and accessed over the required time for character, imagination and intellect, in that order. Debauchery as a science is taught and maintained by programs strict in nature and observance. Rituals are conducted, thought patterns established, relationships destroyed, and dependencies enhanced. Psychopaths are studied and emulated. Read that again, listen to that again, because this is what they're doing from being a kid. They're watching for this. Rituals are conducted, thought patterns established, relationships destroyed, and dependencies enhanced. Psychopaths are studied and emulated. This is what they do to you when they have you under the wing and it's time for them to pull you in. If you are married to somebody they don't like, you're seeing somebody they don't like, they will destroy them relationships. Yeah? Once they can get you into this sexual debauchery or drugs or whatever it is that you're into, there's the carrot. They will establish and cement those dreams you have and make them real. And that establishes thought patterns. Then that becomes your map, your subconscious. And then of course everything you're going to require in this new game, they make sure that they're giving it you. Your dependency on that network is enhanced. Do you see how it works? Some of the deadliest, most effective and disarming assassins are women. Within the Alpha Lodges, they are worshipped as embodiments of the Dark Goddess, who is known by many names and is virgin still. Remember, folks, the early Christians, up until Crusade times, the priests and vicars and all whatever, they were married. There were none of this garbage until then, so everything changed at this time. Currently, the outer head of the Alpha Lodge, Australasia, is a very high-placed and successful federal politician whose satanic name is Bestia. The inner head of the Alpha Lodge, Australasia, is the highest Crown Service operative in the Commonwealth, having replaced former Crown Service agent and Greek princess Ekaterina, aka Sheila Fraser. Together and with time, those at the highest echelons of international Satanism believe that there is nothing they cannot achieve, and if you knew even half of what they've already done, you would agree. Ask yourself whether you've not noticed a number of world tendencies coalescing around the inevitable, that the social fabric is no longer made of whole cloth, and that politicians everywhere are becoming more brazen and extreme in their prescriptions and accomplishments. Should long ago have left little pause for thought, but it didn't then, and it doesn't now. The modern media is a pistache of sex and soft eroticism. The Western world's drinking water has been laced with chemicals that exert powerful effects over time. Rates of depression, suicide, incest and bank interest continue to rise, but no one bothers to join the dots. What do all of the following people have in common? Norman Lindsay, Sir William McMahon, Garfield Borick, Lionel Murphy, Rosalind Norton, Clyde Cameron, Stephanie Bartholomew, aka Abigail. From where do more Australians get their news and why? What is Michael Aquino's interest in Australia's Pine Gap facility? And why is discussion of the base's use and purpose inadmissible within Australia's polite society and media? I believe in one prince, Satan, who reigns over this earth, and in one law which triumphs over all. I believe in one temple, our temple to Satan, and in one world which is sacrifice, and one word which triumphs over all, the word of ecstasy. And I believe in the law of the aeon, which is sacrifice, and in the letting of blood for which I shed no tears, since I give praise to my prince, the fire giver, and look forward to his reign and the pleasures that are to come. They so need the white race to go to war right now. They've enveloped our nations with their controllable races. If we go to war in this one, your offspring, your wives, your grandparents are fucked. Get it in your heads, people. Get it in your heads, because all they're talking up at the moment is war, fucking war. Yeah. You really need to get on. You really need to be as wise as serpents today, people. Wish you're fucked. A number of Crown Service agents in Australia were relieved on the evening of the 19th of December 1967. A number of the President's men in Australia were quietly celebrating as the clock struck midnight on the 11th of November 1975. Both intelligence agencies had relations which were still trespassed by the ghost of Dr. Ward. Both reacted to these events because of Australian Satanism. In the first case, because HRH, Queen Elizabeth II, would be saved embarrassment, and in the second, because Gough Whitlam was not one of them. On this point, I am in no doubt. Sir John did his duty to the Princess and inner head of the Alpha Lodge Australasia, and Sir Garfield explained it. Most people do not know what J.W. Howard's first overseas trip as Prime Minister of the Commonwealth of Australia was to receive his 33rd Masonic degree, for in matters of his true faith he manifests a decidedly disillusioned romantic apprehension. He is the perfect example of parallel lives and a compliant media, well and truly out of the depth. The same could not be said for Harold and his parties, and the fact that people were noticing, and indeed Sir William was invited. You have little if any idea of the history connections of the network of Australia's sinister lodges and temples within them, or their adherents and puppets. Why are some politicians spectacularly successful and others dogged at every step? How was the New York-based public relations firm paid by John for doing such a good job in the elections? Has anyone bothered to check the Commonwealth of Australia's Department of Treasury records, and would they know what they were looking for? I became outer head of the Alpha Lodge Australasia in the same year. A meteoric rise to power brought a change of federal government with a Prime Minister whose relationship to Satan was tenuous and pedestrian at best. But then again, he liked to play around in a number of our special people were happy to accommodate him. So he had some some quirk, for a price. He craved respect and understated admiration, and received both from us for the efforts he expended. I left the Alpha Lodge as best as one can, and tried to reclaim a more mundane, if no less ingratiating lifestyle. I operated a media company publishing anti-Christian tractates, political pamphlets and pornographic videos, working for a number of organisations internationally. The extreme right wing of Britain had recently been infiltrated by a very old and isolated left-hand tradition, and this sinister development augured well for the Alpha Lodges, although today David Myatt is considered more of a prophet than a representative of the hebdomadary magical system, while the Order of Nine Angles pursues a more open approach in the United Kingdom and increasingly in the United States of America. In Australia, we still work just out of view. The strength of international Satanism continued to increase as its oldest families continue to wither. See, the old guard kept the Christian ideal going. That's what stopped it. Whether we like it or not, folks. And the only machine that ever stopped communism was the old Catholicism before Vatican II. Vatican II put Catholicism into communism. In the real world, money gives power, and that came on the back of World War II. In the real world, money gives power, and those best placed to dictate the money market always win. Yet their magnetism and glamour have faded, and their futures are more tenuous than at any other time. Their collective days may be drawing to an end. The most enduring legacies will be the power structures they created and the relationships facilitated, their funding of diverse groups dedicated to the destruction of Christianity as a story never to be told. Their most successful recent social campaign was the Please God Don't Let the Priest Rape Me Again effort in the late 1990s. To date, and the promotion of Lilac Seminary's modern post-1980 Satanism is the result of some hard-learned truths and well-practiced procedures. Everyone knows that we are becoming more obvious. There are decreasing reasons to hide. The world of high fashion, always a glittering ephemeral chimera, became an overtly successful recruiting ground for sweet young things with a daring and glamorous nature. Multi-billionaires increasingly sought the spiritual comfort and insider information the satanic Alpha Lodges could provide. What most people do not realise is that Satanism is a ritually based practice, and that this repetition has over time left strong impressions upon the morphic field. This reinforces security and comfort within the left-hand path through adherence. Politically, the libertarianism of Twain that permeated Satanism gave way to the realisation that the sheeple do not want freedom. They are happy to build their own pens. 2,000 years of Christianity has left them domesticated. So Satanism began taking to itself right-wing positioning, farther and farther afield. In any event, all bank vault doors swing open to the right. All the leaders are dictators, and the sheeple eat from their hand, just the way they like to. Now free of its earlier hallucinations, fully accepts the pathetic nature of the human condition, wrapped as it is in the gaudy packages of superstition. Satanism finally manages to infiltrate the major left-wing and middle-of-the-road political parties on May Day 1997. May Day 1997, the Satanic New Year's Day. Tony fucking Blair, Gordon Brown. Yeah? Remember, Lord Levy was the handler of Tony Blair, as well as Gordon Brown. So there you've got your Jack Straw. This is what's happened to Labour. Labour has been demolished. Demolished by the satanic side. Let's have a look. Where are we there? I've lost where I am. Oh yeah. Another group long ago brought the American Congress, so the Alpha Lodges concentrated on the Republican Party. And this has paid some very high dividends. Currently, the US federal government dances to our tune, a couple of steps removed, if you know what I mean. Within the left-hand path, Satan is the supreme prince. The hierarchy of hell begins with the prince. He is the other, the bright fire giver and illuminator. He is the only God who cares. Satan is a spiritual Darwinian theory based on predation. Devoted Satanists dedicate themselves and their sex acts to the Dark Lord. Prayers are said, chants intoned, or invocations recited, all as the basis of obtaining the blessings of hell. Unknown, if not always unsuspected, infernal temples exist in every major city throughout the world, Vatican City included. Every hour of our day and every night, people are knowingly engaged in Satan's service. Human sacrifice, whether ritually and quicker or slowly and degradingly over time, is all harnessed to specific ends. Politicians are introduced by a carefully graded set of criteria and situations that enable them to accept that the victims will be our little secret. And you've just voted a Lord Moore in last week. Young children sexually molested and physically abused by politicians worldwide are quickly used as sacrifices. In Australia, the bodies are hardly ever discovered. For Australia, it's still a wilderness. Overseas, cremation is the favoured method, and although the Satanic Alpha Lodges of Australia have access to crematoria when needed, this is surprisingly rare. Believe it or not, many bodies are dumped over the side every week in a number of isolated bushland settings. The emerging set of Satanic leaders is young, savvy, competent and heartless. They are masters and mistresses of their emotions and their intellect. Many are involved in business, politics and legal profession and the arts. They are affluent, mobile and stylish examples to the next generation, and therefore to the next generation of Satanists that power is glory, lust is nobility, and liberty is the highest ideal of the new world man and women. Can you see why if you're a good one you've not got any money? They're making sure you don't ever get any, because then you can cause chaos. They use debasement of their victims as a ritual of power to themselves and their deities. Often their victims are made to suffer in any number of situations. All of them are dedicated to creating the new men and women of the future and to surpassing the old ones. Beginning in Sydney in the late 1980s was a now international underground sadomasochist society founded by Satanists. Victims are abused to death in grotesque rituals held in secluded chambers throughout the global metropolis and never-ending suburbs and bewildered housing estates. Although many who attend are unaware of anything except their ability to fulfill special needs and cultivated tastes, all of these gatherings are satanic in nature and magical in purpose. This dark, ultra-secretive society has been used to corrupt and destroy, to distill fear and ensure petrified silence. Remember, the family of South Australia ever wondered why so many people conveniently die from electrical fires. Bodily juices of all descriptions are sacred to Satanists and can be used for magical purposes. The advent of sadomasochism is an accepted form of expression is due to the efforts of Satanists in subverting normalcy and inverting mainstream Christian values. The S&M Society was used as recruitment ground for some of the most perverted geniuses I have ever met. And with the advent of the World Wide Web, extreme hardcore bathroom sex came to its own as a subgenre to be taken seriously. Today, such stars as Alexia Cage and her growing number of friends are enjoying careers that would have been inconceivable but a few short years ago. Indeed, many toilet sex starlets are committed Satanists to Alpha Lodge members or affiliates. By their presence in the world does the Prince of Darkness achieve his aim of exporting enlightenment into the objective universe. Concomitantly, restroom magic continues to develop its own left-hand pass techniques, in which convenience serves as representation of chalice unto the goddess by way of only one example. Today, in educational facilities throughout the Western world, bathroom sex and flute playing are rampant across all age groups. Thank you, High Priestess Monica and the White Witch Fiona. The people of the world are easy to manipulate. Homo sapiens are herd animals. After all, it's all colour and movement when it comes to the masses. Give them an election with no policy choices, and for the most part they're happy. Allow the children no prospect of success, inhibit their natural drives, particularly their sex drives, limit their option, coarsen their choices, and society, such as it still is, quickly falls apart into predetermined categories. No families, just weak individuals, free to do as they are told. Satan is a wonderful systems man. Already there are rampantly individualistic spiritualities spreading throughout the world. Souls and agendas are kidnapped with ease, and Luciferian style rock and roll gods and goddesses captivate the hearts and minds of the next generation. The boldness of the black metal musicians, magicians and our mantras they spread still excite and amaze me, even after my achievements. Advertising continues to chip away at acceptable standards, such that nowadays almost anything is realised as being eminently possible. The foreign policy of the world's only superpower is directed from Israel, and our work is now running on autopilot. You hear that? The foreign policy of the world's only superpower is directed from Israel. And our work is now running on autopilot. So you get that? He's saying that even though Israel's running America, it's Australia running Israel. But he does say it in his work anyway. The Alpha Lodge is taking steps to try and ensure that the next war, the tradition, is maintained in the intervening centuries before civilization as we know it begins again. At that time, Satanism will be in the only religion and science. We have secured the textbooks, relics, and magical weapons necessary for our Dark Lord, and I see the storm clouds gathering. Ritual activity is increasing, social structure almost totally eroded. The sheep will gather for their slaughter. Vindex walks amongst us now, and very few know or think that they do. The other, beyond the attracting, transforming, forbidden essence, contradictory defiance, challenging in its purest answering archetypal shape-shifting form, the fascination that creates, nourishes, destroys, and redeems. The Prince of the Earth, the Lord of the Air, the darkness of the deep, and the God of fire. The majestic potency, force, presence, power, magic of the nature of one known by many, intoxicating, subversive, eternal. The other, the arrogant, inspirational quest, an elegant undercurrent to a superior life of overcoming everything you have ever dreamed of, and more than your deepest nightmares. The alarming, awful, sinister, dispossessed delight of the empowerment of knowing, the triumph of ecstasy, reflected in your imagination, honour, genius, and terror, rebellion, liberty. The other, that banish suspicion and apprehension, apprehensive silence, trespassing in disguise, a question in an accusation, the fear and celebration, the shadow and horror unknown of life and death, of aeons past and potentiality, of willing and becoming, and exalting in this life. Hail my self that I seek to be. Hail the shitbag. It is revealed individually to those who can bear it. My shitbag, the all-powerful shitbag, and Lord of the earth, grant me my desires. Let there be ecstasy and darkness. Let there be chaos and laughter. Let there be sacrifice and strife. But above all, let us enjoy the gifts of life. Now, there's a part 2 to that, equally disturbing, which we're not going to read. And remember, I have said before, I took out so much of this, you won't believe it. I had to. It was insidiously disgusting. That is Alpha, that is the Church of England, that is the African voodooized system, and you can guarantee that that book, that old fat fingers took the oath to, is all about that malarkey. That's what it's all about, ladies and gentlemen. Now then, let me see where you guys are, and I'll just make sure we get through. You're all there. So basically, everybody's been shafted. Doesn't matter where you're at. Everybody's been took off the reality or the book because they're following the commentaries. And no religion hasn't fallen foul of this. Piecing, yeah, done that. Right. You need to be recognised as agent. Done that. How do you protect property and assets these days? You need to keep them in your person, but you have to revert the position so that you're administering the equity side first. That's the bottom line. Then the common law, then ecclesiastical. We will get into that at some point, but obviously I haven't done it yet, so I don't want to put out stuff that leads people down dark paths. But also, and I've said this before, I'm sure, this is not something once I do this is going to be on the internet. Let me put it that way. Because that'll put me in the public with this. I can't do that. This is used private in your own agreements, operating your estate. But you can't do that publicly, as it were. It's not something like that's why people that do it disappear, because they can't then. Where are we? They play multiple roles, people on the world stage, to which I explained some weeks back. but it fell on deaf ears. Says truth is sovereign. Quite right. It's because people don't believe that this is actually going on, but it is. Let me tell you, I have first-hand experience of it, and it was no easy task to get out of the grasp. Did anyone see the wizard looking around passing the doors of the abbey when Big Wubs was getting coronated? I have actually seen an image of it. Chelsea Curran says yes, the Grim Reaper. Stuart McKenzie says look very ominous, whatever it was. Sorkin says it certainly did. Michael Jr. wonder if that Bible is the new Jesuit Bible due for release 2023. Michael Jr., I didn't know anything about that. Can you please make sure any information you have on that you get to me via email. lifeinthemix22@yahoo.com. Thank you, Michael. Brilliant show, fabulous data. Thank you, says Mew. And Lex Van Man, great stuff. Ball. Well, hopefully the alpha side of things, because I've covered it before, is more fitting now, that we can attach it to what happened yesterday and what he off to in relation to upholding Wellesby. And I'm going to have to look at see again what he actually said. But if I haven't given you enough to worry about, then I don't think anything is ever going to really concern you while you are alive in this realm. Thanks for joining me, folks. I hope that is interesting. Thanks for taking part. Mods, if you're there in the background, thanks for modding. And I have only one thing to say, ladies and gentlemen, and that would be, have a great week. Till the next time.